Hi everyone, Tiffany from PCMD here. Today I'm going to focus on showing you through the overview page when you're inside a current job. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to navigate to projects and sit on current. I'm going to look for a project that already has costs on just to give you some indication of what to expect. Now this is a relatively small project, but will give you some idea of what all of these fields mean and how you can look to analyze your project. Now, last time I was in PCMD, I had minimized my sidebar. If you see it minimized like that, you can click the two arrows to pull it out and then the two arrows to pull it back in. All right, now in terms of summary data, you'll see this on most of the pages with the top three boxes remaining pretty still. The bottom three boxes indicate specifics against this particular focus. So I'm about a third of the way through this project in terms of budget. I can see my contract completion date, but also my data practical completion. Got some issues there with dates, obviously. Dummy data. All right, now down here you can see our overview, and what happens initially is it's folded to only show me my project part so that I get a high level view at this perspective. Now I'm going to focus quickly on what each of these tabs mean, and then we're going to dive in and work out why these numbers are so much worse than what we'd expect. So budgeted, this refers to generally what your estimator has budgeted for the purposes of the project. That is what was put into the project when we were in this setup stage of the project. So it is the original budget. The forecast then is pulled from the forecast tab, and you can watch another video on going through in detail how the forecasting works. But the purposes of the forecast is for the project manager to actually dive into what the expected costs to come are on the project. This is one of the best features of PCMD, and it needs discipline to ensure that you're utilizing this functionality and therefore being able to see accurate and live data against the project. We're not reliant on a spreadsheet, and we're not reliant on waiting for the data to hit the accounting package. Secondly, or the third box is committed. This refers to any purchase orders that I have outstanding that haven't yet had an invoice or a supplier's invoice attached against it. In this case, I have $990,000 of orders sitting there waiting for an invoice. Actual refers to either labour costs, so timesheets that have been put into the system by our labourers and approved, or any supplier or contractor orders that have an invoice attached to them. And if there is a supplier or a contractor's invoice where an invoice is only attached to a component of the order, it will only take into account that component and the remainder will be left uncommitted. Pending refers to accrued plus future. So what does this mean? It means that when you've got a purchase order where delivery has already been taken and the delivery date has passed, but it hasn't yet been invoiced, as well as any other orders with delivery dates in the future. Which leaves future, which by its name refers to anything with a future delivery date. All right, so that's really handy when I'm looking at it from a perspective of how much am I going to have to spend in basically this month, and then how much am I going to have to spend over and above that. Again, if you jump into the orders webinar, you will also see that against every individual line item on an order, you can have different delivery dates, which is extremely helpful and helps lay out this data. So let's dive into what some of these numbers actually mean for the purposes of this project. So initially, my estimator has told me that it's going to cost around $2.8 million to deliver this project. So far, there's a forecast value on the project of 3.1. So I've got some big discrepancies here. I need to work out where they're coming from. Alternatively, we're going to have to raise a variation or work out how we're going to recover some of those costs. Now, in a lot of cases, it's okay if certain areas of the project are higher than what was expected, as long as we can make that up in other areas. In this particular instance, we haven't been able to make it up. So let's dive into where that's a discrepancy. So I'm just going to start at project level to see a high level of where the discrepancy is. And straight away, I can see that it majority is sitting in this project specific category. I'm going to use this arrow to then expand, and I'm going to look for within work item level, again, where the major discrepancy is. I can see there's some savings here at planning and design. I can see that commercial and cost is stagnant with my budget, as is logistics, but I can see my overhead costs here are almost tripled. So again, I'm going to drill down into overheads and disbursements to look at exactly my individual estimates against this and see where this is blown up. I'm going to start from the bottom just to give you guys a bit of an idea. I'll scroll down. Again, By having a quick look here, I can see where things are good and where things are bad. Here, I can see PPE. We've actually already raised an order for that. We only thought it was going to cost us 10, so we're 13 grand over budget there. Scrolling up, everything's looking okay here. All right, the big discrepancy, which everyone would have seen probably already, is in office setup. So we've got an extra $880,000 sitting in office setup. So critical here that we dive into this. Was this a mistake in terms of the budgeted cost? Have we raised an order by mistake? Was this 9,000 instead of 900,000? I certainly hope not. But now this allows me to go in and speak to my project manager and anyone else in who's in charge of this project to understand exactly what the purposes of those costs are. Again, I may be able to make those up, but this has given me a really high level view of where my project is not going well and what areas I need to look at. I'm also able to use my search bar over here to quickly identify anything within my overview screen, and it will just basically expand those areas where that search is relevant. I can also use my expand all button, and that will expand everything so that if I wanted to see all of my estimates very quickly, I can do so. Bottom, I also have in this particular instance, we have an assigner integration, and I've got the ability to download the costs and download the budget. So if you did still want to look at this in Excel, which I know some of you may, you've got that function there. I hope that helps dive into what this overview tab is showing and illustrating. This is one of the most viewed screens within PCMD and is really critical for you to be able to see quickly and easily exactly where your project is up to. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.